Now that you have an initial understanding about inner joins, let me give you some intuition as to what happens when you run this SQL query. In terms of the order of execution, the join happens as soon as the tables are read. As you know from the previous lessons, the from clause is the very first clause to be executed in a select statement. As joins are part of the from clause, they're also executed as part of the from clause. Let me rearrange the layout of this slide so that it's easier to explain this. We have the two tables, continent and country, and we want to join the two tables using the column continent name, which exists in both of the tables. When you run the select statement, the database joins each record from the continent table with each record in the country table. So the first record from the continent table will be joined with the first record from the country table. As they both have the continent name as Asia, they are successfully joined and we get the intermediate result as shown here. It then joins the first record from the continent table with the second record from the country table. They have different continent names, Asia and Africa. So the join condition fails and it's not returned to the result. It then joins the second record from the continent table with the first record from the country table. They also have different continent names, Africa and Asia. So the join condition fails and it's not returned to the result. Finally, the second record from the continent table will be joined with the second record from the country table. As they both have the continent name as Africa, they are successfully joined and we get the intermediate output as shown here. Once all the data is joined, the select clause is executed. As we specified in the select clause, the continent population from the continent table and the rest of the columns from the country table are returned to the result set. This is great, but it's a simple example with every record having a corresponding match in both tables. Let's take a different example. In this example, we have the continents Asia and Africa in the continent table, whereas the country table has India and Mexico. India is in Asia and Mexico is in Americas. So we have the continent details for Africa, but there isn't an African country in the country table. Similarly, the country table has Mexico, which is in Americas, but the continent table doesn't have a record for Americas. So what happens when you run the join between these two tables? Similar steps are followed. The database engine matches the records from continent with country using the continent name column. For the first record, there is a matching record in both tables, so that's returned to the result. But the first record in the continent doesn't match with the second record in country. Also, the second record in the continent doesn't match with either the first record or the second record in the country table. So they're both excluded. And the result is returned with only one record that relates to India. So far, we have been looking at unique records in both tables. But most of the time in relational databases, the child table will have more than one record. For example, when you have a customer table and an orders table, customer table will have only one record per customer, but orders table will have multiple orders per customer, as a customer can make many orders. Similarly, in this example, a continent can have multiple countries in it. Let's see how joins work in that scenario. As you can see in this example, the continent table has two records, one for Asia, one for Africa. The country table, on the other hand, has three records, two records relating to the continent Asia, which are India and China, and one record relates to the continent Africa, which is Nigeria. So what happens when you run this join query? Again, similar steps are followed. The database engine matches every record in the continent table with every record in the country table using the continent name column. First record in the continent matches with the first record in country. So that's returned to the result. First record in the continent also matches with the second record in country. So that's also returned to the result set. The first record from the continent doesn't match with the third record in the country table, so that's left out. Similar steps are followed for the second record from the continent table, and it only matches with the last record in the country table, so that's also returned to the result set. And the result is returned with the three records, two for Asia and one for Africa, to the result set. I hope these examples have given you an intuition into how the records are joined from two tables. It's quite simple. The only key information you need to retain is that every single record from the first table is joined to every single record from the second table when you're doing joins. As long as you remember this, you'll know what to expect in the result set when you join two tables. That's the end of this lesson. I'll see you in the next one.